Everybody, welcome to Love Speaks Love. Just going to close a couple of windows because my internet is a smudging slow. So that one can go. All right, so I'm just going to check that we're live. Welcome to Love Speaks Love. I'm your host, Denise. And my fabulous guest for this show is McManus. Welcome,
Thank you.
It's lovely to have you here. So I'm going to share this to there and there and send it in Messenger as requested to the New Earth Weavers. There we go. Okay. Thank you to everyone who's joining us. Thank you for your patience in just setting up there. So I like to start with a little bit of a heart connection and breathing into our heart space and really just bringing our awareness to our heart space. So I invite you to close your eyes if that feels comfortable and if you're in a position to do so. Bring your awareness to the center of your chest, to your energetic heart space. And take some long, deep breaths, breathing in love. Breathing love into every cell of your body, deep into the DNA. Awakening and activating every cell and just soothing all your cells with love. And if you wish to breathe out anything of the day so far, or the week, or the day ahead, or the week, and just release any old energy that you're ready to let go of. And when you feel like you've released enough, you can then breathe love out as well as breathe it in. And we are connected to the universal infinite supply of love. So the more you breathe out, the more you can breathe in. And connecting my heart to yours, and connecting our hearts to everyone watching us live, everyone watching the replay, or on YouTube. Thank you all for joining us. And connecting all of our hearts to the heart of Gaia, the crystal diamond heart of Gaia. And emanating out from her beautiful heart is the crystalline grid of energy and the New Earth template. So connecting in with those as we connect in with her beautiful heart. And feeling her love and recognition for all of us, all that we are and all that we do. And feeling celebration coming out from her heart. And as all of us connect our hearts together upon the planet, just seeing that as a beautiful golden web of light, stretching all the way around the earth and going deep into Gaia's heart. And connecting our hearts to the heart of the sun and the heart of Source Creator, the great cosmic heart. Taking a few more deep breaths and opening your eyes if they're closed whenever you're ready. It's really lovely to have you here. Thank you. And so for those that don't know I wish to honour at this point Jed Riverstone, who I connected with last year. And through Jed, I've made some beautiful connections with some beautiful beings, one of whom is And so we quite regularly as a group get together. It's really hard to put into words what it is that we do together, but there's a lot of weaving of energies, a lot of unraveling of distortions and distorted energies as well. So it's through that I've gotten to know pretty well through that. And your energy is always super gentle, strong and gentle. And you're pretty funny as well. And if Om's not here shouting on screen, he's usually found in a hot spring somewhere out in nature. And you've got a really, really strong connection to the elements, to ceremony. But also I see the elementals very strongly in you, and I know that you're really strongly.
Hold on a second.
I'm
The
guessing.
really funny thing is the house was empty yesterday, and today it's like everybody's home and doing their thing, and it's like, well,
That's all
what can you
good.
do?
What can you do? That's shared living for you. Yeah, wizard energy is really strong in you. And I see you as not just kind of looking like a wizard sometimes, but I know that you can do wizardry stuff as well. So that's my little introduction to for those that don't know him. And you're like, it feels to me, we've never really talked about this, but it kind of feels to me like you've been doing this work forever. Would you say that that's kind of true, that you're awakening your journey, that you've always had this kind of connection to spirit, let's say?
Yeah, it's always been there. It's just a matter of recognizing it for what it is.
And would you say that you had, like, a lot of people talk about their awakening, like there was an event or an illness or something happened in their lives? I'd love to hear something about your journey, of how you kind of got to be here doing the work that you do.
Well, yeah, my awakening process has been more of a flow than like a distinct event that opened up that awareness. I think all throughout my childhood, at least the parts that people would consider to be like the conventional parts of my childhood, I've always been good at like knowing what people are about to say, um, or what's about to happen in a person's life that they probably need to know about. Like my journey really began in earnest with a deck of tarot cards when I was 14, and and I would say, tapping into more of like the healing gifts that I embodied didn't really begin until probably like 2006 timeframe, 2005 timeframe, and then just kept leveling up with like I got a deck of sacred geometry cards by this amazing artist Francine Hart, and that introduced an acceleration. I got introduced to more people who were also tuned in with their reading gifts, and that introduced another acceleration. Then I went to massage school, and between receiving the body work and at the same time I came into contact and began studying with an Incan shaman. So she's like a Peruvian native who came to the Salt Lake City area and just started teaching she had gone through in her own journey. Plus, she was a very, very clear and open channel in and of herself. So she was mostly channeling uh, the mountain spirits, the sacred mountains in her neck of the woods in Peru. And that introduced another acceleration, not just with the body work, but also combining it with the energetics that the shamanics helped me tap into in and of myself, and what I learned from her and the group of people that I studied with. And that went on for a few years until that had run its course. And then it was just like, okay, well, I got all the tools that I need, and now it's really time to just really get into the deep parts of why I get into PTSD, or why I don't feel like connected to this, even though it feels like I probably ought to be, that sort of thing. And it's just like it, opening opening up all those gifts, opening up everything that I embody for where we are in this now moment, where it's like everything is shifting from like this internal doing the deep dirty nitty gritty stuff to, well, okay, it's healed, and now it's just shifting to a disseminating sort of phase of, okay, so I've healed this within myself. And it's quite a bit. It's pretty broad about a lot of the like the hidden things are beginning to broach into the media about pedophilia and uh, ritual abuse, and uh, how human trafficking, all of that. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now, is getting myself more myself. So just being absolutely crystal clear in and of myself to share what I have to share with the world next.
Wow, that's quite a journey.
Right?
Oh, there's so much in that. So the shaman was Peruvian.
Yeah. Her lineage could actually be traced back to the beginnings of the Incan Empire, and her ancestors from that point were both Lemurian and Atlantean. So uh, per what she channeled from her ancestors, it's like both refugees from Lemuria and Atlantis came to what we call Peru today, and began the Incan civilization. And many of the other cultures in Central and South America can have similar traces within their own lineages.
Wow.
and and so it's like it's kind of like getting both like the Mother Earth from the Lemurians and the Father Sky from the Atlanteans, in one.
So the knowledge was clearly passed down. Then she knew she had the knowledge from both lineages.
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Did she share much, like the differences between Lemuria, Lemuria? I got it the wrong way around then. Lemuria and Atlantis. Did she share much about that?
The focus was more on clearing all of the genetic manipulation that went on in Atlantean times. And there's, yeah, I mean, it was really really deep and interconnected, how that affected every facet of Atlantean life. um, she only briefly mentioned the Lemurians in like the 4 or 5 years that I studied with her. So I really can't give you much insight on that, at least from her perspective.
From your perspective, is this something you remember, you recall?
Well, I was never actually here on Earth during Lemurian times, although you could think of it like they wanted to expand their understanding of crystal technology as just an example. And so they did the prayer work, ceremonial work to bring forth the like divine assistance with, crafting different things with crystal. And I was one of those that responded to those prayers. So you could think of me doing consulting work with the Lemurians. I would on occasion visit. It really wasn't until that it became apparent that Lemuria was also going to undergo a great cataclysm, that like my physical presence was more frequent. And then with the Atlanteans, it was like, that was like the focal point of the distortions and in the balance of the masculine and feminine that was affecting Lemuria, and like all the time travel stuff, that it prompted a visit from someone who could truthfully and faithfully embody the sacred divine mother. So think of it like, source, that's everything. And then source beginning that journey of experiencing individuality and having like a heavenly mother, a heavenly father. And so the heavenly mother could be embodied in people who were just compatible with it. I think that's like the clearest way of saying it. And so I traveled with her and several other people to Atlantis as kind of like bodyguards, that sort of thing, so that she could attempt to restore balance to the feminine. And that didn't happen. And we're just now 20,000 years, something like that, 12,000 years, something like that, years later, at a point where that balance point has been achieved, so that all of that that's happened in Atlantis can come into balance and the new world becomes born.
Beautiful. And you mentioned the DNA distortions. I'm curious what kind of, this feels like very deep shamanic work. It feels like there's different levels. So you could learn shamanic work as in working with nature, working with the elements, working with the animal kingdoms in healing work. But it feels like this went a lot deeper. What sorts of things, if you're able to say, what sorts of things did you learn? And I'm curious about the DNA stuff. I wonder if you were kind of taught DNA activation or whether that's kind of come naturally to you.
That's all been natural. This has just been putting those gifts to use in clearing this and bringing this to light. So, as far as DNA distortions, you might hear things like a griffin or a sphinx or a centaur or a minotaur. And that would be an example of like cross species genetic splicing.
Yeah.
Although that wasn't a specific focus, that's just an example of the sort of things that was going on in those Atlantean laboratories. I think it was more specific to, at least when I was going through that part of the journey, clearing the distortion that sexual abuse would have on someone, especially where children are involved. The rapes, things like that, and also clearing like the ceremonial work that the reptilian beings, so they're more commonly referred to as the Draco reptilians, performed to assert dominance over the Atlantean people and in effect assert dominance over the planet. There's a little bit more on that. And also, like, when you get like an implanted memory or implanted emotions and whatnot, that also affects the DNA. So at that time, and now it's like in the present moment, it's now ready to be fully implemented. But in the time that I was working on, so this is like time flies, like 4 years ago, really, that this part really started to um, started to be worked on is also removing the genetic distortions that that happen as a consequence of having like a traumatic memory implanted, or having like loving memories removed. And I think that's the key there, is like all the memories of like all the good things about ourselves, all the good things that we've done throughout our soul's journey, not just here on planet Earth, having all that forcibly removed so that the heart would just shut down and begin to reinstate those memories, that awareness, those experiences, as the heart begins to open back up again.
Wow. So, okay, so we've got a few things there. There's closing down of the DNA. There's implanting of memories. How common do you feel? So you're talking about what happened in Atlantean times, or are we talking now, or both?
Both. I mean, that's really where the that those methods were pioneered, was during those times in Atlantis. And a lot of the team contrast players, I really like how Jed puts that. um, just that it's like it doesn't have like any sort of negative connotation, because we are all just divine beings. Some have just forgotten that they are actually lights. um, it, Many of those team contrast players were also involved with like laying the groundwork, the ritual work, all of that in Atlantean times, and they've simply tapped into their soul memories of that to perpetuate it in the present time frame.
Yeah. And I guess working on ourselves now, this is where the time thing kind of like working on ourselves now is going to clear it back in time. And
Yes.
clearing it back in time is also clearing it in the now.
Something else with that too, with this DNA distortion that we're talking about, especially in the context that I framed here, this is also distorting like lineages, ancestral lines. So um, just an example from my own life, I was born into one family, and things happened, and I was placed into a foster family. I had no idea about this when I was growing up. In fact, it wasn't until I went through massage school that I had any inkling that something was off, other than like I just felt very little, if any, connection to the family that I was raised in, and would like actively like go do my own thing and just completely ignore them as much as I could, despite the fact that I was living with them. This is another thing that happened in Atlantean times, where there were certain lineages that held more light. They'd done the work to embody more divine light, and through some of these manipulations, some of these high frequency, high light bearing families were put into families that hadn't done the work, and as a means to attempt to disconnect that light bearer from source. And the gifts that go along with having done that level of work and embodying that level and frequency of light.
Interesting. And it feels like on a soul level now, sometimes on a soul lineage that's done the work and embodies light, that a soul may come into a family that is less so, but as a means of bringing the light into that family.
Yes, that does happen too, and that's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. So the DNA distortions, can you expand on that a bit? And what's in my mind, but you may want to answer on a different level, um, is about the number of strands of DNA that are kind of like awakened and being used.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going back to Atlantean times when strands were closed down and therefore gifts, or is that another time?
I don't understand what you're getting at. Can you refine a little bit?
So we talk about the two strands of DNA, but that there's many other strands that aren't actually that are being activated at the moment, but somewhere in the past were closed down. Was that
Hmm.
then, or was that another time, or don't you know about that?
Hmm. The simple answer to that is, so I talked about someone who was capable of fully embodying the Divine Mother coming to Atlantis. Well, she got killed. That's what threw everything out of balance, like shut down the Divine Feminine on this planet, at least from my perspective of it. And when that happened, that also shut down the majority of the DNA. Uh, that's not to say that it was fully active beforehand, um, though the framework for the 12 strand model was there. I think that this is speculation because I wasn't there. I don't know the full story. I mean, basically, like what I know from Atlantis before coming there was like, think of it like a mission briefing, that sort of thing. So it's like, you get the details, but you don't get the nuance. Um, where I feel like there were those that were true to the light and embodying the truth of the light were working to perfect with source guidance the 12 strand model as a means for human existence, coming with that 12 stranded model fully activated. And I do sense that that is like a multi-dimensional, multi-temporal. So there were different time points. So the Atlanteans and this group of within Atlantis were working together to, along with several galactic groups, to perfect the 12 strand model. And what I'm being told now is that although the results were disastrous, this was actually with the shutting down of the divine feminine. So this is like how everything's always perfect and how everything contributes to the good of everything. That actually needed to happen so that the the 12 stranded model could properly gestate, and once the input of the sacred feminine was restored to it, it could then take the form that it is divinely and sacredly intended to take.
Wow. And since we got onto this subject, I felt quite a distinct energy change at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still like getting really hot at the moment, which is interesting. So tell me more, if you would, please, on activating DNA. How would you do that?
Well, think of it like the movie E.T., where E.T. and Elliot touch fingers, and it's like E.T. will be right here. It's exactly the same. We've all got the lights, especially those of us who are working to keep that sacred and restore the sanctity to it. Um, it's just a simple intention. It's like, well, I want to activate that particular codon, so I'm going to touch it with my light finger, and bam, it's active because you've just transferred the light into that and jump started it.
Yeah, nice. That's a really beautiful explanation. And some of these things are just so simple, like the words activate source codes, activate whatever that word is in the middle codes,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. Boom.
That's it. Yeah, I mean that's a way of verbally doing it. The like the touching like that. That's just something that came to me just now as we're talking, and I think that's well, I'm going to play with it now. So it's like a waterfall, really.
Do you know what you activated there?
My pituitary gland there. Okay, so with activating that part of my pituitary gland, it's going to, so the pituitary is like the master endocrine gland in the in our bodies. So it regulates all the other endocrine system functions, and like when to release certain hormones at certain times or in response to certain stimuli. So we are definitely on this very fast track, and it's just getting more and more expansive in terms of how much light these bodies are capable of channeling. And so what that did is enabled the pituitary gland to properly manage the infusion of this light at the rate that it's coming in. And since it's like an exponential expansion of this rate of light coming in, my pituitary gland, and now everyone who chooses to receive this activation that I just did, uh, will have increased bandwidth and increased ability to buffer these energies as they're coming in without setting off like the flight or fight response in the adrenals and the thyroid. Uh, this is also activating the thymus, which is higher heart intelligence. So the pituitary is working with the thymus to properly ground and integrate these energies as they're coming in at this speed and at this rate of expansion.
I'm I'm getting the nudge to ask. I'm getting the nudge to see, because another way of doing that would be through light language as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And obviously
Well,
people.
yes and no. I
Okay.
mean, yes, light language can do what I just did, but there's something in the physical touch,
Yeah.
and you know this very well. With the work that you do with mudras and having your hands and arms and legs in certain positions, um, there's something with the physical touch that is part of this process of like physically activating uh, these increased capabilities and capacities. It's not to say that the sound vibrations coming from the light language wouldn't do it. It's like just that physical touch is reawakening the body's memory. So even though someone like myself who's gone through an incredible amount of trauma and abusive experiences, that body memory contained within the DNA, contained with how our soul's energies interact with the DNA, it reactivates that memory through the touch.
Yeah. Okay. Um, because I haven't read the comments, but I'm feeling that lots of people would like that activation that you just did on yourself, and I'm wondering if there's something that we can do together for that, or would you just suggest that they just do it themselves with the.
Okay, so anyone who's interested in receiving this activation, touch yourself right here in the third eye.
Does it matter which finger?
You can, I for me, it's the index finger. If you want to use like your pinky or your thumb, have fun with it. I mean, I can't do it again on myself because it's already active and going. But basically, it was just like the only thought running through my head when I touched this was, okay, channel golden light and activate. There you go. Yeah, you just did it.
All right, interesting. And I love what you said about the physical touch, because sometimes when I do the activations, a lot of the stuff is kind of in the air. I think it was today. It may have been yesterday, but I think it was today. There was something going on around the heart, and sometimes I am very drawn to actually touch parts of the body.
Oh
And
yeah.
I love that we're often doing, not necessarily consciously, or knowing why we're doing certain things, but we're just guided to do them.
That's really key there too. It's like following that guidance. Where do I touch myself? What tone do I make? Do I go like this and talk in falsetto, or I talk really low like this and sound all seductive and just really get myself turned on? whatever it is for you, your guidance will be the key and the thing that you're looking for to begin activating these faculties within your endocrine system, as an example, or within your brain, or within your heart, or within your spleen, or your appendix, whatever it is.
I'm getting the word I'm getting the words lymphatic system coming
Oh
in.
yeah.
Um, oh, hold that thought about the lymphatics. I had this. I was remembering the other day the link between kidneys and ears, because in the womb the kidneys and the ears grow at the same time. I was a kidney nurse. This is how I got onto this train of thought. And I was thinking about some patients that had a congenital abnormality of the kidneys where they didn't grow properly, and neither did their ears.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
hmm. And that got me thinking, the similarity can't just stop there. Like, there's a reason why ears and kidneys are shaped the same, and there must be a functional similarity. But we don't, I've never associated these two on that level. But the kidneys, it's all to do with, it's to do with the water in the, I mean, there's lots more,
Mm-hmm.
but the principal thing is to do with the water, and it's a filtering system.
Mm-hmm.
So it's filtering out certain frequencies within the bloodstream that then gets excreted through the urine.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm feeling is the filtering of certain frequencies of sound, which is a wave as well, and kind of is quite watery in a way in its nature. I'm just I'm just seeing if you're getting anything more for that.
Well, what I was getting is that part of the kidney's function does actually depend upon sound waves and hearing the sound waves, hence the connection between the ears and the kidneys. And so, for the kidneys to be 100% effective with their functionality, it's like the sound of running water carries the frequency the kidneys need to function properly.
Hmm, interesting. Yeah.
The sound of flames too, the sound of wind. So like all the different elements trigger different responses within the different organs. But since we're talking about the ear kidney connection, um, yeah, it's most strongly affected by the sound of running water, or just sounds that water can make. So like a splash can like purge the kidneys if it's allowed to do so.
Interesting. And hence, the desire to pass urine when you hear running water.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And being in a bath as well, being submerged in water is supposed to help that system too. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So back to the lymphatics. Um, I'm feeling there's a lot more about the lymphatics that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's coming into my it's coming into my awareness of late, to kind of work on my own lymphatics. Is there anything that you feel to share about the lymphatic system?
Well, it's not just part of like the body's cleanup system and immune function. Um, in terms of like the energetics of it, it also helps us filter out like all the EMF radiation, all the 4D astral interference. It can help us filter all that out as well. And much like the kidneys, it's also very closely aligned with the energy of water and the heart energies, because the lymphatic fluid is actually a blood fluid. It's just like how the plasma in the bloodstream gets used differently. So, and it also goes the same with the cerebral spinal fluid within our cranium and in our spines. And yeah, it's I was talking about buffering. The lymphatic also acts as a buffer to keep the body protected if there's like a huge energetic shock that comes, or even a physical shock. It kind of helps the body remain calm by having the fluids flowing. And the interesting thing about the lymphatic system is, unlike the cardiovascular system, it can only be pumped by like doing movement and exercises. So it's like if someone's like very sedentary, they're more likely to be depressed and more likely to not be channeling the level of life that they otherwise be would be capable of doing if they were, even going for a walk for like 30 minutes a day. Will get those juices flowing and get and inspire creativity and inspiration, and even in some cases reactivate balanced sexual desire, things like that.
I was getting the word codes as well when you first started speaking. Um, and that got me thinking, how are the codes transported in our bodies? Is that through the lymphatics? I guess it's
It
everywhere.
can be.
But yeah. Do you feel a link with the lymphatics and codes?
Again, it just depends on which codes. At least in my experience, I've noticed that primarily the codes and energies go through my nervous system. But then, I feel like those codes and energies are specifically meant to be relaxing my nervous system so that I can fully embody my soul, rather than holding on to traumatic memories and the body memory associated with it. So, you know, if you ever hear me talking about, at least at this point, I feel like there's going to be greater clarity coming down the pipeline as it becomes appropriate. But basically, it's like when I'm talking about the traumas of my life, it's what I have decoded and read in my body memory. It's nothing I have a conscious memory of, and so I feel like a lot of the energy transmissions that I receive or put out are designed mainly to restore proper function to the nervous system. Although now that we're talking about the lymphatic system, I feel like that's like a disembarkation point, at least in my personal journey, to be focusing more on like the natural ebb and flow of how our bodies interact with the greater source energy field. And I feel like because it is more closely attuned to water, much like the kidneys are, it's like, hmm, yeah, this is going to take me a second to decode because this is like new territory. It's kind of like, as I'm tuning into this, it's like I'm just feeling in my lymphatic system all sorts of codes that have to do with like health and vitality and wellness and um, springboarding into what my heart, what my soul truly needs and wants. So, balance heart desire and balance heart need, beginning to manifest with these health and vitality energies I feel coursing through both the energetics and the physical structures of my lymphatic system. And more to the point, it's also generating hope codes. So the type of abuse I've been through, it's been the pedophilia, it's been the satanic ritual abuse, it's been the human trafficking. Those are like the three major ones that I've been working with, and the hope codes are being generated because I I have successfully generated the antivirus codes, as it were. So think of it like a computer antivirus program running. I've generated the files necessary to plug that into the mass consciousness antivirus program to uh, erase, delete, bring to fulfillment. That's the word. Bring to fulfillment the soul's journey with each of these things I've just mentioned, and thereby giving hope to those who have been stuck in these cycles their entire lives and having like either no idea that they'd even gone through that, because they have technology that will wipe both the body and the mind memory. They found that they wiped both the body and the mind memory, that it was as if the abuse never happened, so they'd go on to live, you know, normal lives being none the wiser. So they had to leave the body memory intact, so that, you know, those traumas would just keep coming up and they keep looking in the wrong place to actually cleared if they were um, uh, astute enough to realize that they have the ability to heal themselves no matter what it is. And so this is helping clear and integrate those experiences that have been intentionally lodged in the body from those various stimuli.
Yeah. And in so doing, you're creating, as you said, you're creating a new pathway that is then in the collective field, that other people can walk that pathway. That pathway's been placed there.
Yes. Compassion also plays a huge part in this, in that going through that level of abuse, you know, really does shut a person off from wanting to interact with other people. And so this is where persistence and compassion really do intersect and make it possible for the the person and their soul to finally get to a point where they can accept these codes, accept the healing, and be able to move on with their lives into something that's much more pleasurable for them and those around them. Like, even in terms of like connecting with people that, you know, maybe the individual has wanted to connect with but could never really quite make the connection due to those factors, and now they can let those people in, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And within that, there's a strong heart involvement in that as well. And, you know, I get the image that even if it's not conscious, and even if the memory has been wiped, that on some level there's a heart contraction and a heart kind of like a layering. It's like that there's a protection that's put around the heart to kind of protect it, I guess.
Hence why we have a pericardium. It's a direct result of trauma that shut down the heart to protect it. Otherwise, the pericardium is not like not as like thick or as big. That's the word that comes, as big as like what medical science tells us it is. Um, Basically, it's whew, oh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, you get a bruise and you might get like this little goose egg if you hit yourself in the head. It's the same thing with intense trauma and the pericardium swelling to protect the heart.
Yeah.
Mashana mashana payat mada mashindari madada shinama omanashin omanashina madashindi oshanda madashina ma omadachina mana mana nena shonana jana ijana jana badachina oshana inna jamana jina na mamna. You know, I've been singing that song or variations of it uh, frequently over the past like month when I've been like up in the mountains, and it just dawned on me that that light language coming through like that is specifically meant to unlock the pericardium so that it can stand down and the heart can begin to shine with the radiance that it actually does.
Wow. Yeah. I feel I may have some codes in regard to that as well. Ihia me eran at ora mekia ili ana at oya ke an itun a orotun eta iki aran arot ot oi nemeda a il an orotun a ki astototon ki le aron ora akokokun abara ke ilisht ile a utun hola a it ara.
Mm. Mm. That feels like that unlocked the grief and the sorrow that goes along with these types and this level of abuse, or any type of abuse really. Specifically dealing with how could someone do such horrendous things to another living being. Like that's the words that come.
Yeah. Yeah. And the consequences of a heart being enclosed and not of that connection with the heart being lost as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to it. I mean, I felt like the heart is literally one of the gateways in which the soul really truly and clearly comes into the body and into our physical existence. And have that shut down would generate a lot of grief and sorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. And initially opening it up can make it feel like there's a lot more grief and sorrow because everything that's in there that hasn't been acknowledged and felt is going to be felt as well.
Yes. And that's really the key to it too, with both of what we brought through, because it also brings in that solace and comfort to begin to feel these things as the heart begins to open up more and the pericardium relaxes.
Yeah. Okay, I'm getting guided to change tack here a little bit.
All right.
So I know you have a really strong connection with Galactics.
Mm-hmm.
When did that start and how did it start?
That's a good question. As a child, I was more drawn to these television shows that was talking about like aliens and UFOs and all that. And yeah, it was just like I just felt like this really strong connection. I don't recall any like sort of specific contact, although I've had dreams since then that have indicated that there was more of a physical presence inside our household, in day-to-day experiences, even though nobody was aware of it. More specifically with the Zayden Greys, although I remember when I was 14, waking up in the middle of the night, and I looked out my window, and there was like the classic Billy Myers flying saucer hovering right outside my window. And as soon as it noticed that I was looking at it, employed some sort of like duplication holographic technology, and so there was like suddenly like this whole grid of the same ship. it was like, well, it really wasn't fooling me. I was still looking at the actual ship. So at this point, it just shot me with this uh, electric blue white ball of light, and I was incapacitated at that point. And I do have memories being on board the ship and being given all sorts of information and upgrades at that point in my life, um, that really represent my gifts really beginning to awaken and activate. Although it wasn't like, again, like this instant thing, it was like more of a gradual process over the years. I think that as I become more and more consciously aware of them, so I'm talking, like 10 years ago or so, it's like I could look up at the sky, I could see like a light swimming around, and oh, it feels like this intense joy coming from that light, and I'm just like, oh, you do exist, you are there, that sort of thing. um I feel like we're about to hit something really, really amazing. um and it's not just connecting with those that are my family outside of the earth experience. I feel like, actually, I'm feeling like a lot of relief, like my stomach unwinding and relaxing, because it's like so many of these experiences that we've never really actually been allowed to remember, just for security purposes of the overall plan here. It's like those restrictions are beginning to relax. They're not lifting just yet, but beginning to relax, so that we can begin to remember uh, all the visitations that each of us have actually had in our childhood and throughout our lives, and remember what we were shown, what we were told, and also remember the times that we got to spend with our non-earthly galactic families.
Which is beautiful for so many who felt homesick
Mm-hmm.
and don't always realize that they are still connecting.
And always have been.
Now, at some future point,
Wait,
go on.
one other quick point here too. And many of these discussions, as I'm tapping into these memories, have been about being vigilant with the discernment with any sort of contact or visitation, because even though we are at a very advanced stage of this part of the mission coming to completion, so it's really already complete. It's just things that have to happen for the for transition to happen, so that as many people as possible, and that's a great number of people on this planet, like well above, well, it's a very, very high percentage, almost 100% at this point. I lost my thread, but I will come back. uh, I think what I was getting at, oh yeah, so like the discernment, it's like, there's still some that, within that infinitesimal amount of wanting to perpetuate the dark, it's like, um, they were teaching us discernment to tell the difference between who is actually our family and who is imposter. And so it's very important to keep that in mind, even at this advanced stage, to not be lulled into a false sense of security. It's really just about practicing the discernment. And uh, just as a side note with discernment, it's like it's not meant to be like this, like condemning sort of thing. It's like, oh, that doesn't feel good. No, it's discernment functions best when you're in a state of innocence. And so, um, you know, tapping into the discernment, it's like, you you're also tapping into your innocence. So it's like, oh, well, there's this being here that seems nice and loving and fluffy. So let's see if we can go play. And then, the discernment will kind of kick in and be like, well, there's like all these energies interacting that are contributing to the play and contributing to building a stable connection. And that's really what my recommendation would be to look for is like, how playful do you feel in contacting and having contact with these beings? And if you're not feeling playful at all, then it's probably a red flag at that point.
And I guess part of the learning around discernment is differentiating between what is just fear causing
Mm-hmm.
a contraction
Mm-hmm.
and what is actually a contraction because your guidance is saying, uh-uh.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not an easy process because it's one of the things we've come to learn to fully
Yes.
be in our discernment. You can't just switch it on one
Snap a
day.
finger and like, oh, you're full of love, and you actually are full of love. Although it is becoming much easier to actually be there, with just instantly being in that instant recognition of something that's through and through purely love and light and working in service of the divine, of our divine source, rather than someone who's or an entity that has its own agenda,
Yeah.
or an agenda of something that's not really uh, being a benefit to the whole of everybody.
And I think some of the younger adults are born with that as well.
Yes.
And then they've got that switched on, that mechanism already. They know the
Yes.
truth.
And they don't have the coding to even be compatible with everything that the former Matrix world has played out as. It's just like any of that shows up, and there's like, oh well, I'm gonna go over here now because that no, I can't even interact with it.
Yeah. And not even making a conscious decision. It's just the legs are taking them over there before they
Yes.
realize I'm not in resonance with that.
Yep.
It's just already done. It's not even a message going to the brain. The body is just acting within that discernment.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, is there anything you want to share about the energies at the moment, like how you're feeling the energies, or how it's how the energies have presented themselves to you?
Well, you got me out of bed, so there's a start. Hmm. I think right now we are experiencing so for most of this year, despite all outward appearances, like the floodgates of divine source energy flowing as transition from the world as we've known it into the world that we've been creating has been kind of like this, like that far open. And right now, with these energies coming in, with the current energetic stated of everything, really, sorry, my computer is deciding to like lock itself down every now and then. So it's been kind of more or less like that for months now. Opening a little bit more, opening a little bit more. Right now, it's doing this action, and that's what is going to progress for the remainder of this year, where these floodgates are fully open. It's like our bodies have been adjusting to the increased level of light coming into the planet and into our energy systems and into the physical body. And it's at this point where we actually have enough bandwidth within our bodies available. So it's like, trying to send a used to be trying to send an electrical signal through something like that big,
Yeah.
and we've actually got like that much right now, but we're still only getting like that little bit. And so the energy flowing in right now is expanding to fill in the available bandwidth. And so it's like we've been taking baby steps along our path. um, the month of August is going to be like we're capable and actually are going to be taking a much bigger step than what we're accustomed to. And it's like because of the level of clarity that we are each at, it's not going to be like the tower type of experience, like, oh my god, why is this happening, to oh my gosh, why is this happening, what have I done, this is wonderful.
I love that. Have you enjoyed 2020?
What?
Have you enjoyed 2020 so far, despite its crazy?
I can't say that I've been participating much in the crazy part of it. I've been having actually a lot of fun.
And it's
uh,
amazing. It's amazing the ways that we can write as well.
I think more to the point with the energy 2020, I'm just looking at what crazy thing is coming out next and just like, oh my god, that's so funny, and then just going about my business.
How are we feeling in terms of completion?
That's funny. I was just thinking you were gonna say that. So they want me to talk a little bit about the heart expansion that's occurring right now with these energetics,
Yeah.
and how this is relating to our bodies coming back into homeostasis, our everything coming back into homeostasis.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom line is that none of this is, and we've been very, each of us have been very meticulous about clearing anything that could trigger like a fear-based response to our hearts just doing what's natural, which is to be open
Mm-hmm.
and opening up. So this is like true openness to what our lives are going to flow as we move forward more and more into this transitionatory space from what we've known into what we've been creating, and having it be accepted and embraced and embodied rather than, I didn't want this, what the hell is this, why is this here, that sort of response to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also a deepening connection with all of our unseen friends, family, helpers, all of that. So ranging from angelics to elementals to ascended masters to even the consciousness of the energies in and of themselves to our own divine, our own divinity, piercing through the veil of forgetfulness that sees the mind looking through myopic vision, so tunnel vision,
Mm-hmm.
and enabling the mind to come into greater sync with the heart and the soul, and the body becoming lightness and radiance that it actually is.
Beautiful. And that radiance starts at the heart and comes out.
Mm-hmm. Something else about like the octahedral energetic design of the human template, because so we're talking not just like the physical body and its the adjoining energetic structures and fields and whatnot. um, this is about just recognizing that everything is once again beginning to function as a whole in an interconnected way, and how the octahedron is like a very balanced sort of structure to have as a basis for the energetic basis for the human body, the human template, and how in a way this is also related to how we're experiencing the resurgence of our Merkaba as well, uh, as we are beginning to tap into, remember how to properly and wisely and compassionately use our magical gifts, whether it be opening a portal for transportation purposes, or connecting to places, to touch healing, to telekinesis and telepathy. Well, increased telepathy, because many of us already are like somewhere in between, like consciously and unconsciously doing it. It's just becoming more and more, as those two aspects of the mind become more merged and functioning properly. It's just like I'm beaming to you a recipe for waffles right now, something like that. And you get it, and it's like, oh, I can make waffles now. And just so much more. But basically it's just like the opening up of how our interconnected nature is supposed to function, and is like the bottom line with these energies at this point.
Beautiful. Thank you. So we are at some point in time. We're in the process currently of feeling into a collaboration, and we'll know when the time's right for that, and we'll know
Mm-hmm.
what it will be.
Mm-hmm.
We both have a great deal of interest and passion and experience of working with the physical body
Mm-hmm.
and how that is evolving. So, quite likely there'll be something to do with that. But who knows? Who knows at this stage? It may all just turn into something else very different.
Like us as the newer dragon weavers, all like doing the collaboration as a team.
Mm, interesting. Thank you, Arm.
It's my pleasure, thank you. It's been great chatting with you.
Mm-hmm. It has. And thank you, everyone who is watching us live. Thank you to everyone who will watch on the replay or on YouTube. And this is us presently signing off for now, but we will, I'm sure, be back before too long.
We sure will. Lots of love, everybody. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. And if anyone wants to share, if this has been in resonance and you feel other people will enjoy it, it's always helpful and lovely if you share. Thank you. Love and blessings from my heart to yours.